Welcome to Hometown Happenings, and this is a second in a two-part series. We're at Crush the Rush here on Detroit Lake City Beach, and we're actually going to get a little education today on how to remove the flowering rush. And to my right is Ginny Imholt, and she is a major contributor to this effort. And also I've got Darren Haverson from the DNR, and he is a biologist and aquatics invasive species specialist.
Right.
For the area. So we're going to get a little bit of an education on how to actually remove the flowering rush, and maybe a little bit of history and how it came to be in our lake and that sort of thing. So Ginny, first off, tell us a little bit about, we had talk to Brad Green, and he was saying we kind of had to correct him because he knows you don't pull the rush, you remove it, you dig it out.
Okay. It's really important to dig and remove all of the flowering rush fragments. If we just simply pull on the plant, it fragments all the root system that can just be chopped into little pieces, float around and replant elsewhere. So it's important to get a hand or a gentle tool underneath and lift so that all these little rhizomes can all get collected.
All right, and we do have some tools here that we'll take a look at in a little bit here. And now, Darren, can you tell us a little bit about, the invasive species, the flowering rush, how it spreads? Jenny just told us, a lot of it is spread because of removal or maybe even boats churning it up and that sort of thing. But how does this flowering rush plant work?
Well, it does spread by multiple ways in the Detroit Lakes chain here. This is one of the unique kind of plants problems in the state. There's very few lakes in the entire state that have flowering rush issues as where it gets as dense and as abundant as it does in here. And one of the reasons that was because over the years we did some mechanical harvesting that actually broke up the plants and broke up the roots or rhizomes, and those particularly spread very easily, and those are what the plants grow from. Maybe over the years we might have masked some of the issues of plants being spread around the lake, but when that effort was stopped a few years back and we moved to a chemical type work to get rid of the flowering rush in the lake, you could tell that there was a lot of flowering rush in the lake. And for the removing it, I guess, it's spreading. It can be spread by boats. Primarily, a lot of boats move through this stuff, particularly on the beach here in between the swimming areas. The boats will blow through it. You can break the roots up that direction. People just swimming in it can alpha it, but if you can get the stuff, even if it does come up on your shore, to rake it up, kind of get it out so those little plant roots don't go and spread around to the rest of the lake. But it can also be spread by, say, ice in the springtime, breaking it up and moving it around the lake, and even to a point where maybe other birds or fish could, but that's probably unrealistic. It's likely more just wind and ice and then the boats moving a lot of this stuff around. So.
All right, and now this next part we're going to have you actually show us how, actually give us a visual of the plants and how you remove it. And now, Ginny, talk a little bit about this tool you have here.
This is apparently a silage fork, and I've been using it just in the very shallow area. It does not work well where it is very tall and thick and the roots are dense. There we need to use the 5-prong potato forks. But this has worked very well on small plants. I can get well under them and lift them slowly, and all of the sand sieves through and I end up with just a plant. So I'm testing this out today. And Darren has a small cultivator, that's for my height. And with that one, I like to work under it just as if it's my hand, work it under a plant and twist and then lift up slowly, and it'll take out a mass of roots all intact.
And now you're dressed, now you don't need a whole lot of equipment, but in order to actually get to the stuff, you might need a pair of waders, or you don't have to have that, or what would you suggest people wear?
I wear chest waders for protection from swimmer's itch, because I'm susceptible to it. And we've learned through time that either baby oil or sunblock put really heavy on the arms protects the arms from the little parasites. So that's my method.
Right. And do you have a certain method for removing this as well? I mean, everybody seems to be wearing waders.
Yeah, I think waders are important just for that reason alone, and let alone even if you sit in the water is about 70, 74 degrees, and you sit in it for more than 2 hours or stand in it, you're going to get cold. So the waders also give that extra protection for that. But there's a lot of gentlemen down the beach that are wearing shorts and jeans too, so all it takes is a rake.
And we've got the mayor, the former mayor here, we've got the police chief and other volunteers from the community. It's a great community effort, and we want to stress that if it wasn't for the community, this wouldn't be happening right now.
And the purpose of starting with this section of beach is because this is the one most highly used. I've been on the public beach on different occasions and seen people set up for weddings. And then their wedding pictures show Flowering Rush in the background. Or the Young Life Triathlon, we start and stop multitudes of swimmers right through the Flowering Rush. And that is something we can pretty easily remove in the short or in the shallow water.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break and be back with more Hometown Happenings after this. Welcome back to Hometown Happenings. We're here at the Detroit Lake City Beach at Crush the Rush. Darren, can you show us exactly, what the rhizomes look like and what this Flowering Rush, what people should see?
Again, the way when you're trying to get this when you're trying to get the rhizome and the plant out of the sediment in the bottom, you want to get underneath the plant, underneath the root structure, and then kind of pull it up, get underneath and pull it up underneath it. Because what you're trying to really get, if I can break it off, you can kind of see here, there's a lot of these roots, but right in the middle, there's a real hard root structure. And this, you can break these little pieces off, and that will sprout a new plant. Either it could even be this year or next year. So when you're removing it, you want to make sure that you do get all the plant and all the root structure out of the lake.
All right, so we're going to get more of a perspective outside of the water and what Darren was showing us in the water. Now there's kind of a little onion thing you want to look for.
It's kind of the bottom sprout here, bottom section of the rush itself. This is kind of the part when you pull on the rush, this will come out of it. But many times this is what's attached to it, is these little hard chunks of root, or rhizome is what we call them. And if you leave these in the water, this is what's going to continue to sprout. So by just pulling the top part of the plant out, but leaving the rhizome in, you actually don't solve the problem. You leave the sprouting portion of the plant still in the lake to grow for another year. But so it's important to actually remove the entire plant, such as I've got in my hand over here, removing all the rhizomes and all the roots and everything along with it. So.
Right. And do they usually grow in kind of a clump like that? Or, I mean, that's...
They can grow either singly or they can grow in clumps. A lot of what you're seeing on the beach here is big clumps of these plants growing together. Their roots kind of go in between and kind of network in between everything. But this stuff will actually grow out of the water a little bit on the beach here a little bit. So you want to make sure you're getting that. And then it grows quite deep. It will grow out to 12 feet or maybe even deeper. But it won't. The top portions of it won't come out of the lake. It'll be a kind of a submerged or underwater form of it also. So.
And we're going to turn over here, and Ginny is raking up something here. These are actually growing in the sand. Is that what's happening?
When the root fragments are not removed, or when propellers chop them into segments, then these little, just the roots wash up on the beach and replant themselves. You can see it's just a little mass of roots. And things like this will, if people try to compost it and put it in their gardens, it'll grow in the garden also. Now next to it, this came out of the water, this is wild celery, and this is something that is food for wildlife. This is what the geese, especially the geese, really truly love in the fall, and they'll rip a bunch of it out. But this is a natural plant that's good for our lake that we do not want to remove. The Flowering Rush has a triangular stem. It's usually a little bit darker in color. The wild celery is a beautiful springy green. It looks more like a fine lettuce out of the garden. And it's a delicacy if you're a goose.
I was going to say they do look somewhat similar, but not if you look really closely. Like you said, this is more of a smooth, flat.
Yeah, very smooth, very flat.
All right. And we're going to have to wrap it up here, but Ginny Imholt and Darren Haverson, thank you so much for talking to us from Crush the Rush. I'm Carol McCarthy for Hometown Happenings.